Hey, Unbounders, how you doing? Just gonna adjust the camera. Yay, how you doing? Full moon, exciting times. Great to be with you this afternoon, this evening. It's afternoon where I am, but I know it's evening back in the UK. So great to connect with you for this full moon releasing ceremony, which makes it sound a bit grand. I don't know if it's going to be that grand. But I've really felt called to do something with you today on the full moon. I normally do something personally, both on the new moon and the full moon, whether, usually something, it doesn't have to be something big, but I will usually do something around the new moon and the full moon in my personal practice, and thought it'd be fun to share something with you this evening, or this afternoon, today anyway, when it's full moon. So it may be that you kind of really work in alignment with the cycles of the moon, or it may be something that's quite new to you. I know for me, it's probably about 5 years ago when I first really started to become aware of the cycles of the moon. I hadn't really paid much attention before, and I really set my intention to kind of learn more about how the cycles of the moon affect me, and how I could harness the different energies at different stages of the moon cycle. So generally, and this is really general, what the case is that full moon is a great time for letting go and releasing, and new moon, which is the dark moon, which will be happening again in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks time is a great time for setting intentions, really planting seeds. But I always say, go with whatever feels good for you. So the full moon will generally be a time of very high energy. You might feel like really up in your head. People can go a bit crazy. It's a great time to have a party and to socialize generally. So it can also be a good time for kind of setting intentions, because there's a lot of energy, and it's almost like you can harness that collective energy and project it out into the universe. So we will do some intention setting today, during the ceremony at the end of it. And also new moon, because it's new moon but it's dark moon. New moon is literally where you can't see the moon in the sky, so it's dark. It's a time of darkness, and the energy can be a lot quieter. It feels more, it feels like you want to kind of turn inwards and be more introspective, and as well as kind of planting your seeds at that time and thinking about what you want to create over the next moon cycle. That can also be a good time for letting go. So really go with what feels good for you. Generally for me, I prefer the new moon. I prefer that time of going inwards. It feels really good for me. So I will use that time for letting go and also for setting intentions. Very often the full moon can just feel a bit intense for me, and I will generally do something around full moon, but new moon tends to be my go-to cycle stage of the moon cycle. But this time the full moon feels really powerful, and there is a little bit more of an introspective quality about it, or what I'm finding. And I think probably because there's quite a few planets in retrograde at the moment. So we've got Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and I can't think what the fourth one, I'm sure there's four, that are in retrograde at the moment, which, when planets go into retrograde, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but when planets go into retrograde, then it tends to be a time for reflection, really. And people say, stuff can stuff bubbles to the surface, basically. So it's a good time to look inwards and reflect on where you are at the moment. So I think those kind of retrogrades combined with today's full moon, for me, rather than that full moon energy, it feels like a really powerful time for letting go in a bit more of a reflective way than maybe kind of having some mad full moon kind of crazy ritual out in your garden going naked. We're not going to be doing that tonight. You might want to. Like I say, you know, this is how it feels for me at the moment, and you will be able to see kind of online around full moon and new moon. There's always, depending on who you follow, but there's always kind of articles being shared about, you know, what's coming up around the full moon, and maybe areas of your life that are being highlighted. But I always say bring it back to yourself and what feels good for you. I can see my blankie. My blanket. It's not cold here today, actually. It's actually been really warm the last couple of days, but it just rained a bit earlier, so I need a bit of coziness. Yeah, go with whatever's coming up for you. If it feels like it's a good time for you to set intentions, set intentions. If it feels like it's the time you want to focus on your relationships, focus on relationships. If it feels like a good time for letting go of something that's been getting in the way of you kind of making the money you want to, then do that. Be guided with however you feel. You are the best expert on your life, and you can use the energies of the moon and the moon cycle to help you with whatever's coming up. So as a bit of a guide, you can look back over the past 2 weeks, because over the past 2 weeks since the last new moon, the moon has been waxing, which means it's been growing in the sky, and the energy has been building. So what has been coming up for you over the past couple of weeks? Has it been stuff? It may well have been stuff to do with relationships, because Venus has been in retrograde, and Venus is the planet of kind of love and relationships. That's one of the things that she governs. So it may be relationships and love, it may be money stuff, it may be health. You know, what's been coming up for you? What feels like an area where you would like to do some releasing this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are. Okay, so, you know, really tune in to your own intuition and how you want to use this ceremony that I'm going to be sharing with you this evening. Okay, so if you are with me live, please do comment and say hello. It'd be great to say hello back to you. I'm just going to look at my notes because I want to make sure that I cover everything. So we're talking about, you know, this ceremony in particular is designed to help you let go of anything that no longer serves you, anything that you feel has been getting in your way up until now. Okay, and like the next couple of weeks until the next new moon, when the moon starts to wane, it starts to get smaller in the sky, it's really going to help you to let go and clear away anything that's been blocking you. So, you know, we're really going to be in a power period over the next couple of weeks. So I just want you to ask yourself the question, what do I need to let go of right now? What has been getting in my way? You know, and I close my eyes as I ask those questions, because, you know, all you need to do really, you may be aware of what you want to let go of, but just, you know, if you close your eyes and ask yourself those questions, ideas will come to mind, and it might just be one word, or it might be kind of a whole sentence that comes up for you, or just a sense of what you need to let go of. But go with whatever comes up for you. You know, all of my work is about really tuning into you, because you know, what's best for you, and you know what you need to do to move forwards. But very often we don't give ourselves the opportunity to tune in. So, you know, this ceremony, like I said, it's a bit of a ground word for it, but it's an opportunity really for you to tune in and see what's coming up for you. So what do you need to let go of? Maybe it's fear, or some doubts that are coming up for you, maybe some old stories that you've been telling yourself. Just notice what comes to mind. And, you know, I meant to say at the beginning, but if you've got like a journal or a notebook with you, you just might start making some notes now. And also, you know, if you've got a candle or some incense, you might like to light that now, because it just helps to kind of set the space for what we're doing here. So you might choose to kind of work through this as I'm talking about it now, or you may choose to work through it afterwards. You know, you have an opportunity to use this full moon energy for the next kind of 48 hours, so don't feel you have to rush this. But when you do choose to sit down and do this releasing, then like I said, you want to have a journal with you and you know, if you can light a candle or some incense or something, just to, like I say, set the space for what we're doing here. Okay. So what has been coming up for me recently, and I guess, you know, it's pretty much always the way I tend to work, is whatever we want to let go of, is to do it really with kindness. Yeah, and with compassion and with understanding. So this morning I was doing some journaling, and something that came up for me was like some really, felt like really old stuff about feeling kind of flawed in some way. And it was like, oh, you know, and you get to the point where it's like, I've done so much work. How can there still be this idea? You know, I'm still holding on to this idea that I'm flawed or not good enough in some way. And what I've been working with recently is, how can I get into deep agreement? How can I get into deep agreement with kind of my current situation, or how can I get into deep agreement with whatever's coming up for me, or how I'm feeling right now? So as I was journaling, I was just writing, well, how can I get into deep agreement with this idea that I'm deeply flawed? And I thought, well, I can't, because it's like consciously, logically, I know I'm not deeply flawed. None of us are, you know, we are all good enough. So I changed the question to, how can I get into deep agreement with this part of me that believes she is deeply flawed? Because, you know, the way I work and my belief is that we have all these different parts of us. So if you know, if you've got stuff coming up for you, and you might feel like, oh, I can't believe that I actually think this about myself, that, you know, there's something wrong with me, or I can't believe I'm still feeling scared of this, or I can't believe that I'm still don't seem to be making the money that I want to, or I can't believe I still seem to be kind of attracting these relationships that feel really destructive and toxic. So rather than getting frustrated with your whole self, just recognize that it's a part of you. It's a part of you that's creating that in your life. Sam, but we're talking kindness tonight. We're not doing fire. Well, you could do fire, but not with these lovely parts of you. And this is what I'm talking about, the different energies of different moon cycles. And for me, this one feels a lot softer, actually. So this, when I ask myself the question, and I invite you to ask this question, how can I get into deep agreement with this part of me that's holding on to whatever it is that you want to let go of? So maybe there is some fear or doubt or this old story. You can journal on the question, and I'll give you the question now. Like I said, you might want to just make some notes on it as I'm speaking, or you might want to come back to this afterwards, because it really deserves some time, actually. But how can I get into deep agreement with the part of me that is holding on to this, and that this is whatever it is? So for me, it was a belief that I'm deeply flawed in some way. And actually, as soon as I asked myself that question in my journal this morning, everything shifted. So rather than feeling frustrated with myself that I was still, after all this time, had this kind of underlying belief that there was something wrong with me. As soon as I shifted it into, how can I get into deep agreement with this part of me that believes it, that part of me came into my awareness. And this may well happen for you. You will recognize the qualities of that part of you. So for me, she was a very young part. She was quite unformed. She was really vulnerable and tender. And I just moved into a place of love and compassion immediately, just from asking that question. So it's a really powerful question. And like I say, to do it under the light, whether you actually are under the light of the full moon or you just know it's out there, at the moment, it really enhances the power of the work we're doing here. So that is the question I want you to, or I invite you to ask of yourself. How can I get into deep agreement with the part of me that has been holding on to this? And this is whatever you are choosing to let go of under the light of this full moon. And you can journal on that, do some writing on that. And one thing you may like to do, And again, this is probably something that you'll want to come back to afterwards. And hey, Simona, I can see you've joined. Lovely to have you here. I know you love the witchy stuff too. Got all my witchy ladies with me this evening. A really lovely thing to do is to actually write a letter to the part of you that's been holding on to whatever it is you want to let go of. Like I say, that part of you is very likely a very young part of you, you know, and is feeling quite kind of scared and confused, and, you know, it's got all of this stuff coming up. So to actually, as the you are now, to write a letter to that part of you can feel really powerful, to offer that part of you some reassurance, some kindness, some compassion, some understanding. So, you know, this is the way, as I keep coming back to, this is the way that I am feeling called to work with this full moon this month. It may be that you are feeling really different, and like Sam said at the beginning, you know, burn. Burn it, and you can burn like limiting beliefs and old stories or anything you want to let go of. Another way of working with the full moon is just to write down you know, all of the stuff you want to let go of on a piece of paper, and then rip it up, you know, either just rip it up into tiny pieces, or you can burn it, or you can go and bury it in the garden. You know, there are all these different ways of working, but what I'm suggesting to you today in this kind of ceremony, in this ritual, is like a process that's just come through for me at the moment. It's a personal process that I wanted to share with you, if you feel called to do it. So the first thing is to ask yourself the question, well, the first thing is to decide what you want to let go of. The second thing is to ask yourself the question, how can I get into deep agreement with the part of me that has been holding on to this for so long? Okay. And then the third step is to write a letter to that part of you that's been holding on to it. And just like I said, in doing that, it creates a shift. Everything kind of relaxes and frees up, and you move into a place of compassion and kindness, where that is the aim of this. Once you have done that, okay, what I invite you to do is to actually go outside if you can. And hopefully, wherever you are, you can actually see the full moon in the sky. Like I said, it was raining here earlier, but it still looks a bit cloudy. But I think it's only about kind of 4:15 in the afternoon. So hopefully this evening it will clear, but you can go outside and you can see the full moon in the sky, and just take a few moments out there under the light of the moon. If you want to go naked, you can kind of get bonus points for that. You don't have to. And as you're under the full moon, just ask for whatever you want to let go of, this old pattern, you know, this old stuff, this old story, this old belief, this old block. Just ask for it to be released, for it to be dissolved under the light of the full moon. And it's just as simple as that. You just kind of ask for it to be released. You can say the words out loud if you feel able to. If it feels a bit too public, you can just kind of say them silently in your mind, but just really stand or sit under the light of the full moon. If you can't see it, it doesn't matter. You know, you still get the effects of the full moon. But just ask for whatever you want to let go of to be released. It's really, really powerful. And like I said, over the next 2 weeks, also kind of moving towards the next new moon, which is on the 27th of April, it's a really good opportunity for you to continue clearing any of this old stuff that you want to let go of. So it may be that you... Simona, yep, I'm here. Our switches get to fly. Yay! Get the old broomsticks out. It's good to have you here. You know, it may be that you want to continue developing this loving and nurturing relationship with this part of you that's been holding on, or had been holding on to this stuff that you want to let go of, this old stuff. And what you do is, when you develop that relationship with this kind of young part of you, this vulnerable part of you, that part of you, and this may all sound, you know, completely out there to you if you're not used to this way of working, and I completely get that. So take what feels good for you, take what calls to you, and let go of anything that, you know, feels a bit too out there for you. But, you know, I'd encourage you to stretch yourself as well. But what you do is, when you consciously choose to develop a relationship, and kind of a nurturing relationship with these different parts of you, particularly the parts of you that are feeling quite hurt and vulnerable and tender, those parts of you start to feel safer, and they will have an opportunity to begin to release their grip on all of these old patterns or habits or beliefs or stories that they've been holding on to. And like I said, I know it sounds a bit out there talking about all these different parts of you. It's a bit kind of, it might sound a bit crazy, but really it's a really powerful, powerful way of working. So try it out and see how you get on. And, you know, this is the kind of work that my book, Heal Your Inner Good Girl, we do a lot of this kind of parts work in it, and it guides you through the process. So that could be a helpful resource for you if you're feeling like, oh, this all feels a bit strange. That will guide you through a process, which is very similar. It's not necessarily working with the energy of the moon, but it takes you through a process which helps you to kind of heal these very young and vulnerable parts of you that can be impacting on your life. Now they can be keeping you stuck in these old patterns. Does that all make sense? I hope so. So those are the steps that I invite you to go through. Decide what you want to let go of, and just ask the question, if you're not sure of what's getting in your way, just sit for a moment and ask yourself the question, what do I need to let go of? What have I been carrying that I can let go of now? And see what comes up. Then ask yourself the second question, how can I get into deep agreement with this part of me that's been holding on to this? And just journal on whatever comes up for you. Because when we get into deep agreement, we move out of resistance, and resistance is the thing that can kind of really keep us stuck. Whereas if you ask yourself the question, how can I get into deep agreement with this? Everything just frees up, and you move into a place of compassion and kindness and understanding. And then you can write a letter. It doesn't have to be very long, but you can write a letter to that part of you that has been holding on to whatever it is you want to let go of. And again, it's up to you. But I would encourage you to write that letter from a place of kindness and compassion and love. For me, that's always the most healing thing. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation there. And then at some point this evening, overnight, go outside wherever you are. Or, you know, maybe you can see the full moon through a window. I always like to sleep with the full moon coming through the window onto me if I can. And just ask for whatever it is you want to let go of to be released, to be dissolved under the light of the full moon. So it's really setting your intention and asking for that to happen. See how that feels. And like I said, over the next 2 weeks, you can continue this process of letting go. You may choose to kind of do some tapping every day, some EFT tapping. And if you've never done tapping before, you can check out my YouTube channel, which is Nicola Humber. Yeah, or you can just journal for the next, sorry, I'm getting distracted by comments, or you can just journal for the next couple of weeks on what you want to let go of, and really use that waning energy of the moon. Simone asking, have you ever had a part of you that you want to release, you know that it's needed, yet you feel you might be abandoning that part you again in some way? Yeah, that's a really great question actually, Simona, because what I'm talking about here is it's not actually releasing or letting go of that part of you. It's letting go of whatever that part of you is holding on to. So say we were talking about a fear of not being good enough, or this, like, you know, I was saying this is coming up for me this morning, this idea that I'm flawed in some way. And it's like, oh, you know, come on. I've done so much work. I can't still have this belief that I'm deeply flawed. So there's a real frustration there initially, and almost, you know, an idea that, oh, I would want to let go of that part of me. But what I recognize is actually it's not the part of me that I want to let go of. It's just the idea that I'm flawed in some way. So by connecting with that part of you, okay, so building a relationship with that part of you, so whether it's your inner good girl, or for me, this part of me that I kind of came into contact with this morning was much kind of younger, much younger. So I didn't want to let go of her, I didn't want to release her, but I wanted to, you know, really build a relationship with her and send her some love and some attention and let her know that I'm here for her, which is like the healing process, so that, you know, together, and again, I know this might sound strange to some of the people listening to this, it's like, oh, what's this? I've got all these different parts of me. But, you know, that with my support, that young part of me can let go of that idea that she's flawed in some way. Does that make sense? I'm just going to check back to your question to make sure that I've answered it, or I feel that I've answered it. You want to release, you know that it's needed, yet you feel you might be abandoning that part again. Yeah, I think it's really important, you know, you don't want to feel like you're abandoning any part of you. And that's what this idea of deep agreement is. It's like, whatever is going on, you know, whatever these parts of me have been holding on to, whatever stories they've been telling themselves and through themselves me, I don't want them to feel abandoned. They're like children, you know. You don't want them to feel abandoned. You don't want to push the child away. You just want to let go of the kind of belief that that child is holding on to, or the story that that child has been telling themselves. Does that make sense? If not, yeah, ask me another question, ask me a follow-up question, because, you know, it can be quite complicated to get your head around. And like I say, the process in Heal Your Inner Good Girl, it very much takes you through this step by step. And the idea behind Heal Your Inner Good Girl wasn't like, let go of your inner good girl, get rid of your inner good girl. It's to recognize, actually, she's been there to serve a purpose. She's been there to keep you safe, and to yeah, to keep you safe, really, to protect you. And she feels that the best way to do that is kind of holding you back and making sure you fit in. So the whole process in Heal Your Inner Good Girl is not about kind of pushing her away, but letting her know, actually, it's safe. It's safe to be yourself. It's safe to kind of let go of some of those kind of internal rules and stories that you've been telling yourself. It's safe to have fun. It's safe to be free, you know, all of those things. So I guess it's, you know, that thing of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You want to throw out the bathwater, but you don't want to throw the baby out with it. So you want to get rid of you want to release the old belief or the fear or the doubt or whatever it is. You want to release the block, but you don't want to throw that part of you away. You don't want to abandon that part of you. I hope that makes sense. Like I said, if not, type in another question and I will answer it. I just wanted to say, I mean, that's the process for letting go and releasing, which is generally what you would do with a full moon. But like I said at the beginning, on a full moon, there tends to be kind of this heightened state of energy. There's a lot of collective energy, so it can also be a good time for setting an intention. So what I would also invite you to do is just think about what you want to bring more of into your life. Okay, right now, maybe one quality that you want to experience more of. And when you kind of go outside to release whatever you're releasing, ask for it to be released under the full moon, you can also set an intention to bring more of that quality or whatever it is you want to experience into your life. Okay, so maybe you want to experience more abundance or more love or more compassion or kindness or more freedom, whatever it is. Once you've let go, you can just say the words either out loud or silently to yourself. I choose to experience more abundance, love, whatever it is in my life now. And I ask for that intention to be empowered and magnified by the light of the full moon. Okay, so that's kind of another step that you can do if you feel called to, because like I said, it's all about tuning into yourself. What feels good for you? Does it feel like you just want to let go? Okay. Or do you want to bring in a positive intention as well? Okay, so Simone, you're saying, I guess I feel that I am now holding on to her rather than the other way. I feel it's time to let go. Well, that's really interesting because, yeah, I guess we could become quite comfortable with different parts of us. And we can get quite comfortable with kind of old beliefs and stories which have been there for a long time. They feel very familiar. It's like kind of being under a familiar blanket like I am now. So yeah, if you are feeling, I wonder what it is. I wonder what kind of quality she brings, or you feel that she's bringing, that you want to hold on to. Okay, because I would suggest it's that quality, that kind of, that pattern, that belief, that story. Yeah, I would suggest that it's that you have maybe been holding on to. And again, you could do some kind of ceremony like this, and maybe in the letter that you write, you could write something about how you've been feeling, that, you know, maybe this part of you is ready to, you know, go off and live life differently, and you've been holding on to her. So maybe you could write about that in a letter and how you feel you've been holding on and now it is time to let go. Because I guess as well, if you use that analogy of children get to grow up and live their independent lives, hopefully. So maybe it's like that. Does that make sense? So, you know, you get to use this in a way that feels good for you. And like I said right back at the beginning, you are the expert on you and what's going on for you and how your energy feels and whatever's coming up for you. Like no one else can tell you what's the right way to do this. So if you have a sense that you've been holding on, again, I would just set your intention, and you can do that in writing. Louise, hey. You can do that in writing. You could do it as a letter. You could like go and make a like a declaration under the full moon. You know, you can do that in whatever way feels good for you. But just having that awareness, Simona, is really helpful. You're saying definitely the growing up bit. That's what I started to write. Yeah. So rather than holding on to that part, kind of allowing her to really flourish and become independent, and just asking yourself, what, like I said, ask yourself, what is it about this part of me that I have been holding on to? What feels familiar? What feels comfortable? And allowing yourself to let go. So thanks for reminding me of the different options. It's a pleasure. If anything else comes up around that, please do comment below the video again, and I will come back and answer it. So I hope that has been helpful for you, and yeah, and fun, and giving you some ideas about how you can use the full moon energy and how you can really kind of work in alignment with the moon cycles as well. There's a lot more I could say about this, how the moon cycles tie in with our own kind of personal kind of menstrual cycles as well. You can work in a similar way with those. And actually, I might post the link. I did an interview with Lisa Lister, who's a real expert on how to kind of harness the power of your menstrual cycles. I did an interview with her a couple of years ago, so I might post the link to that interview here in the group so that you can have a read or listen to that as well. Anyway, any more questions, do come back and post them below the video and I will come back and answer them. Enjoy the full moon. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the energy of this full moon. Sometimes it can feel a bit intense, but for me it feels like a really reflective full moon. So however you're experiencing the full moon energy, enjoy it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.